Corwin Street. Presenter. Excuse me.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, there we go. Great, thank you. Good evening. I'm Jacob Citrin, founder and CEO of Cargo Ventures. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm thrilled to be part of the team presenting our redevelopment of the 13 Corwin Street property. My company specializes in developing industrial properties throughout the U.S. We've been a long-time investor in Massachusetts, dating back to 2003. We have never invested in Peabody before. A long time and important customer of ours, Forward Air, asked us to and help them create a new home. If you could please move to the next slide. Thank you. Our agenda tonight will be introducing the team, reviewing the existing conditions at the property, and then we'll provide an overview, site, traffic, and then be here to answer any questions you may. Look forward to answering your questions and your guidance as we work our way through this process. And now I'd like to hand this over to Karen Staffier with VHB, who will be able to walk into more of the technical details of the project. Thank you.
Well, my name's Karen Staffier. I'm a civil engineer, professional engineer in Massachusetts. I work with Vanessa Hang in Breslin, and my area of expertise is site civil engineering, and I'll be here to kind of walk you through the existing conditions on the site and what we have proposed. Jake mentioned some of the improvements on who works out of that location, and on the site there are about 188,000 square feet of existing buildings. You can see the largest building is kind of in here, and then there's some buildings right along the brook. So this green space here houses Goldthwaite Brook, which parallels the railroad right away there. And as you can see kind of on this graphic, there's a substantial amount of pavement and building area on the site. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is a view showing what the site looks like from Corwin Street. You can see there's head-in parking along the street today. The newest of the buildings is here, just in the brick color, and then behind it you can see the larger main building behind. There's one curb cut that you can see entering the facility there on the left of that image. And then there are a few images you can scroll through, kind of showing if you go up Corwin Street, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to see what's going on inside the. This is the paved truck parking areas and more kind of back of house industrial space throughout the site. And then in this area you can see on the right there's an old tank farm that's been decommissioned, but you can see the concrete containment area that's there on the right. So all these kind of older buildings and all this old pavement and systems will be replaced by a new building, 161,000 square foot warehouse facility that includes truck docks and office space for the workers. The site will be fully reconstructed, as I mentioned, with new lighting and landscaping, all new utility services, and an upgraded stormwater management system. We were in front of the Conservation Commission last week and on the drainage with them presently. I believe the next slide shows the building. So this is the view of the new building from Corwin Street. The employee parking is in the front of the building, and the truck access is on the north-south sides. The next slide shows the site plan. So this is in the same orientation of the aerial that we looked at earlier. So this is the 6.5 acres. In this peach color, we have the 61,000 square foot warehouse building. I'm losing my, there we go. So the employee parking lot is here, and the truck docks are here and here on the plan. The vehicular access, rather than having it be through one curb cut, we are proposing 2 curb cuts for one-way circulation. So vehicles would enter on the southerly curb cut and either enter further into the employee lot, or they could come around, access a truck dock on either side of the building, and then exit and head south, to create a more orderly and streamlined operation for the facility. The green spaces, actually, if you go to the next slide, please, Drew. It's a little hard to decipher at this scale, but the landscape plan is provided in the package that we provided to accompany site plan review. But you can see this area down here along the brook. We've kind of enhanced, pulled the pavement edge back, removed a big above-ground tank system that was there, and generally creating more open space, not only along Goldthwaite Brook, but up here there's another small resource area, and upgrading all of the plantings on the perimeter consistent with the screening requirements and the zoning. From an environmental standpoint, this is a great opportunity to kind of take a site that isn't doing much for itself and bring it kind of into the modern day. As I mentioned, we've increased the buffers and open space. We've removed about 4/10 of an acre of impervious cover. The stormwater management system will be new and in compliant with the stormwater management regulations. The applicant will be required to maintain that system going forward to ensure it's functioning properly. The building, of course, will be a modern and efficient building consistent with the current building codes. The long-term pollution prevention plan, which is an element of maintenance of the building, will help ensure resource areas are likewise protected. And during construction, we have a erosion and sedimentation control plan and inspection set forth in the stormwater report as well. And this just gives you a little sense of kind of all these blue lines represent how the water today in the drainage system gets down to the brook. All of the pipes you see in the big fat blue lines convey the water down to Goldthwaite Brook. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see in a different color all the new pipes that we're proposing to convey, and we've also added some treatment systems in there as well to provide the water quality treatment. So all in all, it should be a substantial improvement from an environmental standpoint as well. Not only that, but we have a positive fiscal impact associated with this project. There's no anticipated increase in demand of public services. We have, as Jake mentioned, 50 employees or so working out of the facility. There will certainly be construction jobs created through the construction of the facility itself. And we have an estimated improvement to the tax base of approximately $165,000 annually. That kind of concludes the summary from a site-related standpoint. If there are any immediate questions on that, I can answer them, or I can hand it off to Vinod to discuss the traffic.
Questions from the board?
Just a quick one. Did you say that the existing building is 188,000 square feet? Is that what you said?
There's multiple buildings on the site. So if you go through the building, the assessor's cards for the whole property, all the assessed buildings add up to 188,000.
Okay. And yours is 61? Proposal, 61,000?
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
Dr. Otto?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Drew, do we have a construction committee review or public services review for this project?
No, I should just preface this. We did meet with the applicants for a construction review meeting. They are going through peer review right now, but I explained to them that if they wish to come before a planning board to present this project, knowing fair well that I would recommend the board not take action tonight because there has been no peer review taken on this yet. But this is their opportunity to present this project now as they undergo different peer reviews through Department of Public Service.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any contamination issues? I know that across the street in that old building there's some contamination issues. Does it spread across the street into your area?
Not that I'm aware of, no. The LSP's reviewed the project for our client and has signed, kind of agreed, and we submitted a letter after the construction review committee that the project will be done in accordance with the MCP and is not anticipated to exacerbate conditions.
So are they saying that there's no contaminants on the property at all, or is that just an assumption?
During the time that the property was owned by Stahl, they already have an AUL in place that exists today and will carry forward. This design is also inclusive of the requirements of the AUL.
The largest problem on Linfield Street. I've never seen a problem going from Summit towards Goodwin Circle myself, until you get to Goodwin Circle, and then it's terrible. You made a statement about 80% of the customers are in and around Peabody. Can you put a definition to around? I can clearly define in, that's very easy. Around is around, are we talking Essex County? Are we talking, what I'd like to know.
Ours on the Airframe Logistics. Forward Air is a service provider to those companies. So they are essentially wanting to move where their customers have already moved to.
Okay. So is this like a business that things come in like 53-foot box trucks, get put into the warehouse?
Logistics companies, manufacturers, they do not, as Vinod described, they do not do any residential delivery.
Understood. Is the client, are they expanding? So is that one of the reasons for coming to Peabody, other than logistical and geographic?
They're actually going to be taking less square footage here than they currently lease from us on McClellan Highway.
Okay. So that comparison to existing truck traffic that this gentleman made is a fair comparison?
We certainly believe that, yes.
Right. So, because in other words, if you were doubling the size of the facility, then it wouldn't be a fair comparison.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
And just a last thing. My quick math up there, I got 17 and a half hours per day, Monday through Friday, 7 hours per day on Saturday, and 11 hours per day on Sunday. Is that?
Yeah, the hours.
Do you mean that we're, well, it's on Sunday, it's noon to 11 p.m., so.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Saturday, it's 6 to 1, that's 7 hours, and Monday to Friday is, right. Okay. It's a lot of hours, so that's all. Thank you.
If I may, this is going to be more of a terminal operation. Would you describe it that way?
I would not, but Jack could talk to more of the specifics. I know we are going through, or will go through, for a special permit in Peabody.
Well, is warehouse allowed by right? Yes. Down is.
Concom has been completed, and construction review and planning board site plan approval. Then we will be allowed to go to the council for our special permit. Your question? A good lawyer will do.
Across this section of the brook, owing in part to the fact that the study is from the 80s, and in the 80s there was a building over the brook there with some hydraulic restrictions. Nonetheless, from a regulatory standpoint, that's what we're using to do our assessments. Approximately elevation 79 on the left side to 68 on the right side. Our building elevation, by the time you get so the drop, I don't know how you did this so smoothly. I'm a little shakier than you, Vinod. So this section here, it drops pretty substantially from 79, 80 down to 74, 73. Our building is at 70, I want to say 76.5. It's above. It's a couple feet above.
I don't want you to have to scramble to move all your freight because the tide's coming in the back door, so that was my point with that question.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. There are no residential homes abutting this property, right? It's all industrial in there, and,
That's correct.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. You must know that as far as traffic goes, you must know that the right turn from Corwin onto Linfield Street is very tight for like a 53-foot trailer plus a cab, truck cab, to make that turn.
So again, yeah, one of the things we will be doing, that one of the bulleted items you saw up there indicates that we'll be looking at that intersection of Corwin Street and Linfield Street, specifically for that purpose of making sure that the radiuses work, and at the same time we make sure that there's a pedestrian crosswalk across Corwin Street, and we want to make sure that by making changes to the curb line that we are not impacting the pedestrian crossing. So it'll be a comprehensive look at that intersection to make sure that truck turning works and pedestrian accommodations are improved. And we might also be looking at some of the drainage. There's a little bit of ponding in one of the corners of the intersection, which will need to be addressed as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
As I mentioned before, I just wanted to reiterate to the board, they did go through a construction review meeting. At that meeting, Department of Public Service discussed with the applicants, as they know, about different peer reviews, water, traffic, and drainage. And have you been working with Will on which firms you're using for each of those? Yeah, have you worked, you know who you're using? Excellent. Excellent. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. So at the construction review meeting, we had asked, is it a 24-hour site? You had said it was 24 hours, but now is this new with the hours of operation?
That's the same information, yeah, that's provided by Forward Air for what their operation, so it's not 24 hours.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure on that. And then can you kind of explain, so I know we kind of asked this at construction review, and you guys had said been there a little unsure, but maybe Cargo Ventures can help with this, and just discuss what a typical maybe truck would be like coming in. So what is, I know Roy had asked, like, who's coming to this? So maybe explain, like, what happens with it. I guess I'm trying to understand how this building works. And do trucks come in and do they wait? Is that why there's, 100+ parking spaces around there? Or do trucks come in, drop, and leave? I guess kind of like, what does a typical day look like at a facility like this?
Let me try and answer that. So Forward Air controls its own trucks. And so those are drivers that are mostly contract employees. Some are full-time employees, but they are employees of, or directly or indirectly, of Forward Air. So they will be collecting freight typically at other airports throughout the country. And Forward Air provides an expedited trucking service tailored to the logistics industry. So product will come into this facility. It will stay for a period of time. Typically on the shorter side, so 7 days would be on the high end, and that product would be broken down, processed, and then put onto a different truck for then delivery to the vast majority to businesses already in Peabody. And these are other logistics companies and larger manufacturers. And then the process is reversed. So they're picking up finished goods, product from those companies, bringing them to this facility where they're consolidating them into larger loads that are then sent outbound to either an airport for air freight shipment, or what often happens is what is an air freight shipment actually never touches an airplane. It is on a truck like a forward air truck, which provides an expedited service to a Chicago, to a Detroit. Did that answer your question? Okay.
And then I mentioned this at the construction review as well, but I take it people pull in, and as you mentioned, did the truck drivers just drop off and then the truck drivers will leave again?
Typically not, since these are forward air trucks, so the trucks will come in, and that is why we have this parking area. One of the biggest problems, and as the owner of the McClellan Highway buildings, I have to own up for it, we don't have or stay for the day and ultimately leave.
That's what I'm getting at is 2 points here. One is
Just one thing. So one of the, there is a sidewalk that runs along the east side of Corwin Street, but it stops right about there. And that's primarily because you have a railroad right-of-way. That's not public right-of-way that you'd cross, and then immediately you would get to this driveway. So I'd say there's probably like a 50-foot, 75-foot section of Corwin Street, mostly made up of that railroad right-of-way where that sidewalk does not exist, and you wouldn't want to put the sidewalk across the tracks, I guess.
If I may. So, any fueling gonna be going on the site?
Forward Air does not currently do fueling on site, and I know of no plans for them to do that on site going forward.
Maintenance?
They do very light maintenance on site, light, tail lights, tires, no heavy maintenance is
No
done.
lubrication, oil changes, all that's done
That-
somewhere else?
Oil changes could happen on site, that could, but not heavy vehicle maintenance.
Well, you have heavy vehicles, so any maintenance is heavy vehicle maintenance.
Forgive
So
me.
if you're
Forgive me.
changing oil on site, you're gonna have to have fresh oil and waste oil
Yes,
receptacles.
correct. Yep, and to the extent that happens, that is done with fully licensed vendors who come, handle the product, and leave.
Where are these vehicles fueled up now?
I would have to get back to you. I believe it's over the road. I don't know exactly where, but fueling does not happen at our current facility, nor is it planned for here.
All right, great. And a traffic concern, Roy brought up the intersection with Corwin and Linfield Street. I believe there's a parcel of property vacant on that corner that, I can't tell you how to run your business, but it could be utilized to make a swing lane for a truck to blend right into Linfield Street. That's all I have at this time.
just, because I didn't see it on the map and you guys had sorry, on the plan, I take it it's not just a small dumpster. You guys will probably have some sort of large dumpster for this site. Where is it again on the plan? I was trying to find it. Is it in the back corner? Sorry, just the dumpster on site and trash.
There will certainly be a compactor that would be connected to one of those loading positions. It would be a compactor. Beyond that, there would be a small dumpster.
Excuse me. I don't have a question through the chair, but just a comment. So I'm very familiar with this site. I've been in Peabody my whole life and worked in Peabody since '94, so been to this facility many, many times. For the board's information, there was a very large chemical facility there, probably really close to 100,000 gallons of highly flammable solvents were kept on that site. That's all gone. So I really don't think we need to be worrying about gasoline and oil and all these other things when we had what we had there. And, you know, we're talking about benzene, toluene, lacquer thinner, all these highly flammable solvents. That whole area is in a total state of disrepair, and it needs a facelift. And if you guys are successful in coming to there, I hope you'd try buying some of the parcels around you and making them look nice too. So that's my comment. Thank you.
very much appreciate your comment, and I know my company, and I can speak for Forward Air. We are hopeful that we'll be able to both become long-term members of this community, and we'll grow from there potentially.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. We very much appreciate the time, and we look forward to coming back.
I was just gonna say, next steps, I guess, is we'll just, or not I guess, but next steps would be we'd wait for peer review to come back, wait for Department of Public Services comment, and then invite you back at a later date when that is done to discuss.
So we'll just, we'll stay on the agenda, we'll monitor the turnaround with respect to our peer review, and then be back. As Schwarzenegger said, I'll be back.
Next on the agenda, Boulderwood subdivision, Mr. Salamini.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Salamini. I'm here tonight to request two things of the board. First, I would request the board take a vote to accept the Boulderwood subdivision as a complete subdivision. And second, I would request the board take a vote to authorize the mayor to take title to the water tower and the associated infrastructure on behalf of the city of Peabody.
Have any questions?
Mike, it was my understanding that the city council is the body that buys and sells land.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the exact process of the transfer of ownership, but we're open to working with the city attorney to figure out the exact paperwork to get that, those items squared away. All I'm asking for is a vote to authorize the mayor to start that process to whatever that process is.
I don't know if we can vote to authorize the mayor, but I think we can let the mayor know that this process has started. But it sounds like you're working with Attorney Khan.
Correct.
On
yes.
this. So I think that that's how that route would go, unless if we find out otherwise. But I mean, the board can't vote for the mayor to, kind of do that. I think that's Dr. Otto had mentioned, the city council would take ownership.
Okay, yeah,
But we could vote, the board could vote on your acceptance, which you had asked for and you'd worked with Department of Public Service on. But in regards to the taking of the water tower, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's city council. That's how I believe that goes.
There's a very lengthy, detailed agreement for the water tower that I agree with you is not in our scope. That they've got to iron out some bumps in the road that I'm pretty sure involve the turning over of the water in the tank every day, and the issue of the high service pipe that was run to Oak Ave. So I think there's a low service system and a high service system, right, in your project. And the low service does up to some elevation on Gedney, and then the high service takes over from there up to the top. So the developer was told to extend a high service pipe easterly on Bartholomew Street to the intersection of Oak Ave, which was all done. But then there's issues between the city and the developer that they want the pipe extended further to Kylie. And the fact that the tank appears to be, to me being a hydraulics layman, too big. So all these things have to get ironed out, and then I guess the mayor and the developer can sign the agreement. But I agree with you, Drew, that I think we can certainly take this letter from DPS saying that the subdivision has been completed to their satisfaction and vote on that.
Okay, I'm good with that.
That's my opinion.
Yep.
Dr. Otto?
Thank you. I've been trying to sort away, make sense of all this business regarding the water tower escrow agreement. And Drew was kind enough to set me up with the files for Boulderwood, and I read probably about 1,000 pages of material dating back to 1996. And this board is signatory to the water tower escrow agreement, which one of its provisions speaks to a water transition system being approved. And unfortunately,
Water transition plan.
Yes, thank you. And I don't know if this board has ever received any kind of documentation of what this plan is and who's doing what. I'm not going to say I read every single page, but I got through quite a lot of the file and I didn't see it. And so, Mike, maybe you can.
Yeah, so that plan was created by Weston and Sampson. I can't pull it up quickly on my phone, but that plan does exist, and I could easily get that over to the board for their review. And that was done back in 14, maybe.
Yeah, I know it goes back a while. So I guess I would say I am not comfortable accepting the subdivision when there are still some questions. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed in Public Services here to give us a 2 or 3 sentence memo when there were, 6 or 7 items in the last review, and we don't know anything about the disposition of those items.
Maybe Mike, I know that you met with Bob Labossiere out there. Maybe you can speak to a little bit about what you guys discussed.
So we met with Bob Labossiere, and basically, like his memo said, all his items on that seven item list were satisfactory to him, and that's, yeah. I'm not sure how detailed you want me to get it. So we have mowed, the detention areas like was requested. Access to those detention areas was provided, and all those other items, were discussed. And like he said in his memo, he's fine with them.
That's helpful because I took a ride up there and I didn't really see how vehicular access could be provided, in fact, to those detention basins, which suggested to me that he gave up on that condition and let it go. But I don't know that from his memo because that detail is not there for us.
I think in regards to the access, so we had a meeting as well, and that was discussed, but wasn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a separate way that could be entered? That's what came to the agreement on, or?
So we did, take down some trees and build a ramp down to one of the open basins, and the back basin that's behind 34 Cicinos, we were able to get an easement plan that gives them better access around the back to that open detention basin, and that was fine with them. So.
Thanks. If I could just, I think my last question, maybe, I don't know. As far as the transition plan, it was my understanding that what was at contention was who was going to be providing and installing the pressure relief valves. And if you could just update us on how that has shaken out, because we don't, I think, know anything about how that's been worked out.
Give me a second, let me pull up notes on that.
Just while Mike's looking for those notes, I can point out that another item that was on that original 7-item memo that was forwarded was in regards to the plan. At that meeting, that was worked out and that was satisfied with the developer. And there was a couple other small things that were just through discussion were satisfied as well with the Department of Public Services.
Thanks, Drew. I don't have the memo with me. I'll take your word for it.
like you said, it's a lengthy file, and I have a huge file in my Dropbox, so which one is it? So with regard to the pressure reducing valves in the transition plan, I'm looking at a letter that was given to the prior DPS director, Bob Langley, dated January 15th, 2015, from Weston and Sampson, basically outlining their transition plan. Basically, from the beginning, new water main there, and the original plan and the plan that was agreed upon through the water tower agreement was we were going to install a new water main down to Oak Ave from Gedney Drive, and then from Oak Ave, it would connect into the existing water system, and Weston and Sampson identified a number of houses at the bottom of Oak Ave. As Oak Ave goes up in the hill, that would have, an increased pressure. So they identified what houses may need pressure-reducing valves, and I have that plan from Weston and Sampson, identifying those houses, and that was given to Public Services, and I believe this board as well, and if not, I have that documentation as well. And then, basically that was what was given to the board. Then, unbeknownst to us, Public Services contacted Weston and Sampson to develop another plan outside of, what was, adding another section of pipe that wasn't part of our agreement with the city. And that was, we were fine with if they wanted to do it a different way, but we weren't gonna,
I thought there was some disagreement internally, and so this is on the city side or on the Weston Sampson side, or perhaps some of both, as to whether pressure-reducing valves that served a general population rather than an individual house was a more suitable solution. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, and we were open to, there was a bunch of different iterations of individual pressure-reducing valves in houses or a pressure-reducing valve in the street, and it was kind of going, around in circles, and it was, basically, either way, our position was that, we only had to, give a plan to the city on how to take the water system that we, were obligated to build, for the city, and, basically, however they wanted to transition, take what we were forced to build and then implement it into the rest of the city system. We would, however they wanted to do it was fine with us, but, I don't know what I'm trying to articulate here. It's the, we were open to any way to getting the pressure reducing issue resolved. So, again, we have two different sets of plans. The plan that we gave the city as, the transition plan, and then a second subsequent plan that was developed by Weston and Sampson that had another, piece of pipe going over to Kylie with different configurations of, pressure reducing valves as well. So there was, yes, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess in regards to the water tower, I guess it sounds like in what you read, Dr. Otto, that the planning board is signatory to that agreement. So I think does the board decide to vote on that or not? But the acceptance of the subdivision, you guys can vote on.
If I may ask Dr. Otto, we've recently reviewed the documents, and this got to be 25 years ago since this was approved. In the documents, even though they are interconnected, is the water tower aside from the subdivision? Or is the water tower part of the subdivision? So if we move to accept the subdivision as complete, are we inadvertently pulling the water tower in with it?
My understanding is, yeah, in the water tower agreement, it's all part and parcel of the same,
We
thing.
signed off on that.
Mike, I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would put those as two separate items, you know, the subdivision as one item.
You
and
would
the-
do it as two separate.
I would assume that would be the best way to look at it, because the water tower agreement was something done after the subdivision approval.
Right, right. I was surprised to learn
And it
that,
wasn't.
frankly, that the planning board was a signatory to it, because my understanding is this was all worked out between the mayor's office and DPS, so, but, not myself personally, but a number of the people sitting in this room did sign it.
That was one of them. Is it possible to have the city attorney come before us and give us some advice? I think the subdivision is complete. If we take one in, are we taking the other also by accident almost? I know the water tower was a condition for a far greater amount of houses that was actually constructed, and you guys got stuck with it. And I don't recall there ever being an A&R where that lot was removed from your subdivision, so I think it's kind of part of your subdivision, and that's my hesitancy right there.
I agree with John, and I think it's really important to get the language right in the motions that we make, and Attorney Khan would be very helpful to us in that respect.
Again, I think the subdivision is built, it looks good. It's just the technicalities with the water tower that's my little holdup.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, and if there's any other, you know, I have files and files of, you know, computer files of all the items, and if there's any questions, you know, feel free to, you know, send me an email. I'll be able to provide, you know, background, you know, as far back as I have in my files.
I think having the transition plan would be helpful, because I did not see that in the file. I'm not saying it wasn't there, but I did not see it.
Yeah, it's a two large PDF files from Weston and Sampson. So
Great, thank you, Mike.
yes.
In transition, you're meaning new system to the old system, not transition of ownership.
Right, yes.
Correct.
I'm referring to a provision that was in the water tower agreement that refers to, see if I can find it here. Simply called a transition plan. It's paragraph 12 in the agreement.
We should. Dr. Otto can attest that's big files. Most of it's all hard copy and sitting in City Hall. If you want to come look at it, I have it.
Just a comment. Certainly not for now, but in the near future, once all this gets resolved, I think we should send an official correspondence to the city council to officially take these streets. How many streets do you have, Mike? 6? I know there's some long, some real short. 6, 7 streets. My understanding is there hasn't been an official taking of a street in the city of Peabody for many, many decades. These streets should be officially taken by the city and you know, deeded and done properly. So, and I think that would go to the
So
city clerk.
Yeah, so we're working on that with the city attorney to figure out exactly how that's gonna happen.
Thanks.
I do agree with the board that we need clarification from the city attorney as to what's going on the water tower. My personal recollection of this was that the disagreement was the city wanted you to pay for transition valves, anything necessary to reduce the pressure, and you didn't believe that it was your responsibility to do that.
Correct. And still opposition that, you know, the agreement stated.
It wasn't in the plan for you to do it originally.
Yeah, so our position is, you know, the agreement stated that we were only required to create a plan for integrating into the existing city system, you know. So we weren't going to implement, you know, that plan.
That seems to be the problem, and we really need clarification from the city as to, attorney as to what direction we should take in that, since Dr. Otto pointed out that we are part of that agreement. So, again, thank you, and I'm sorry you have to
That's
keep
okay.
coming back.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out on the agenda there, sorry, it wasn't listed, but that's just because 68 Prospect Street, just an update on them. Their peer reviews did come back. Department of Public Services is in the process of reviewing the peer review right now and making their final comments on it. I would expect that to be done and discussed between the applicants and Department of Public Service before the next meeting. So I would expect to have the applicants back at your next meeting to discuss 68 Prospect Street, and that should be done. Sorry, it was on the agenda. My apologies.
Next item of business is notice of decisions from the City Council on 43 Main Street and 2 Washington Street. Anybody have any questions on them? Hearing none, any other matters proper before the board?
Mr. Chairman, couple of things. Through you to Drew. Drew, as you can see, there's only 5 members here tonight. 1 member short, we wouldn't have had this meeting. I think it's imperative that you send a message to the mayor indicating that we need some alternates. I think we're down to 2 alternates,
I don't think we have any alternates.
at least.
We don't even have any alternates.
Yeah. I'd hate to see, you know, people show up at the planning board meeting and it has to be postponed because of lack of a quorum. And the other thing is will you be continuing to send us hard copies in the mail for, to all the board members, or board members who want hard copies? Because I would like to receive a hard copy of plans, you know, that I can open up, type of thing. We got them, we received them sometimes, we didn't get them other times. Is that going to be, can we?
Yeah, this one, I just handed out this large packet at a prior meeting to most people, so there was just going to be an agenda in this meeting packets, that's why I didn't send it out. But in the future for plans, yep, you'll get them.
Any other comments from the board? Dr. Otto?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys for coming again.